What you are hearing is the mating call of the divorce lawyer. So hold on tightly to your wallet and understand, at this juncture, the only winners in the divorce will be them. Hi gang, welcome to episode 3 of Conscious Uncoupling for Fathers. For those of you that may be watching out of order, my name is Andrew Chase and I have a master's in spiritual psychology, and I wrote a book on conscious uncoupling for parents, which I am turning into a video series focused on fathers. I have found that the quickest way to heal during my separation and pending divorce was to get a laser-like clarity on what led me to choose my wife in the first place. The sooner you are able to separate your tarnished ego from your relationship, the faster you will be able to get to work on the real deep-seated pain that you are experiencing. This is the most raw time for both of you, so immediately meeting this challenge head-on will keep things from becoming more volatile. For those of you that have been divorced for a few years, that is fine as well, as it is never too late to repair your relationships, although obviously it may be harder to do. I refer to this step in the separation period as the he said, she said blaming game, where each party begins to adjust percentages for fault. You will know that you are in this place by the sound of expensive wool slacks rubbing against each other as patent leather shoes click-clack through the courthouse halls. What you are hearing is the mating call of the divorce lawyer. So hold on tightly to your wallet and understand, at this juncture, the only winners in your divorce will be them. To be clear, I am not trying to insinuate that keeping lawyers and courts out of your divorce will be easy, and in many cases it is just a necessary evil, regardless of how altruistic your goals may be. For example, in my situation, we owned a company together, so splitting everything 50-50 was not as complicated compared to where one spouse makes more than the other, which of course is far more common. Now is the time to do an ego check-in. If you recall from one of my prior videos, it doesn't matter which party had an affair, if that was your situation. But to reiterate, most people feel that in the case of one party having an affair, they should be compensated more in the divorce. Because of course, that person had broken your marriage vows made before God, friends and family, right? But in the spiritual world, man-made laws do not apply and no one owns the corner on the truth. If your wife cheated on you, that just means that you were not connecting. And if you go back to the sixth sense effect, that was there all along. It just may have taken many years to realize it. Most men are going to have a tougher time with this, or should I say their egos will, because if you were the main breadwinner, in most states your wife is going to get half of your earnings, which may taste like a bitter pill because you were thinking this isn't fair. I didn't do anything wrong, and now everything I've worked so hard for is being taken away from me. First off, the universe never gives you more than you can handle. And if this wasn't for your highest good and that of your families, it would not be happening to you. As I will continue to reiterate, you are too close to the pain to see the forest for the trees. My biggest fear was being a divorced middle-aged man, living in an apartment, only having my kids half the time, and who my kid's future stepfather might be. Well, that is exactly what happened. At age 41, after 10 years of living in very comfortable sized houses worth over $1 million in the most beautiful suburbs, I was living in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment without even a dishwasher or backyard. And guess what? It felt like the first time in my entire life that I could breathe, and not having the responsibility for a mortgage, a gardener, house, etc., 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 was actually refreshing. The universe looked out for me by getting our house sold at a substantial profit during the 2009 financial meltdown. Regarding the stepfather scenario, I just trusted that my former wife would be as protective in who she would bring into the house around the kids as I would be. And guess what? A couple years later, she married a great guy, what I would call winning the stepdad lottery. I had already won the divorce lottery by creating a marriage settlement agreement and doing all the paperwork myself using Legal Shield to help me each step of the way for half the cost of a basic monthly cable. By doing such, tens of thousands of dollars are saved that would directly trickle down to our children and not end up in the hands of lawyers or courts. Again, we pretty much split everything 50-50, which I realize in Los Angeles is more of a Hollywood movie than reality. I wrote the book this video series is based on with the #1 belief and goal in mind: children come first. Money and things will come and go. However, the longer we go without our children's best outcome in mind, the tougher it will be to come back later and patch things up. The cost of therapy bills alone for both you and them will pale in comparison for any amount lost from your financial settlement. Every time I felt my ego grapple trying to get the best of me, I would just remember those 3 young and loving souls and what must be coming forward for them. Think about it. They went to bed with a mother and father under the same roof and woke up to find their whole world flipped upside down. Our goal was to make the transition in their world seamless, and by not putting them in the middle of our separation, we did just that. We sat them down together and let them express how they were feeling about our decision. We didn't judge and we didn't blame. We just sat there next to each other and listened in silent unison. We also came to the conclusion that if we were going to have any disagreements, we would make it a priority to do them in private and not in front of our children. We set the intention to go through our transition from husband and wife to loving, supportive co-parents with grace and ease. So if you've already gotten a sign off from your wife that you want to go through this program together, then just like starting a company and drafting a mission statement, you will want to create a written intention that is specifically meaningful to both of you. If you do not have your wife's support in this realm, then you will want to write an intention for yourself, knowing that the only person you have control over is yourself. What I have found is that once one person in the relationship releases their ego and focuses on the greater good, without losing sight of themselves, of course, that the other person will rise to join them. It may take days, weeks, months, years, but at some point, they will take accountability for their actions, and they will no longer have someone to keep them locked up in the fight. This will help to anchor your resolution, especially in the most challenging moments, and remind you that this too shall pass. I know the pain and hurt you are feeling, and as you listen to this, you are probably thinking that we are the exception that proves the rule. And trust me, I hear you. When we told our friends and family, etc., that we were going to handle our divorce ourselves, they looked at us as if we had three heads. But remember, they are coming from their paradigm, which may work for them, but it isn't about anyone else but you, your wife, and your children. And anyone that isn't supportive, you will just have to give a timeout to, and that includes your own ego. I know I keep saying I was lucky and won the lottery, but it wasn't easy. I just had to keep my head down and not let the negative Nellies in. We both had to fight with the blueprints we were born into. I would also say that just the fact that you are still watching this video is a testament to your desire and openness to harmoniously make the transition from husband and wife to loving co-parents. Whenever I found myself doubting that we could successfully make this move, all I had to do was look in any of our children's eyes. This would remind me that without my wife, these beautiful and amazing little teachers would not exist, nor would they have their special personalities that were a combination of us. Before you can start on building your foundation, you will want to untangle your codependency from your wife and take an emotional assessment of what you have brought to the relationship and what you have picked up while you were together. For example, in my relationship, one of the main reasons we decided not to be together as husband and wife was the financial piece. The way money was viewed in my family was a polar opposite from my wife's family. We gave great value to money. My mother would always say, never spend more money than you have in the bank. This seemed like an obvious point based on my family blueprint. However, my wife's family viewed money from a very different angle, with the belief that money would come and go, but family and friends are forever. So to run up a huge bill on a credit card didn't mean anything to her. Because of my family's belief that we were doing things the right way, this created much judgment on my end towards how she was spending our money. And on the flip side, she felt that my family and I were too uptight with money and didn't know how to live for the day. While her belief helped me later on with a more liberal view towards money, at the time I was seeing red. Once I was able to come to the understanding that neither of our family blueprints were right or wrong, it was easier for me to begin unraveling the emotional connection I had with her that was no longer serving me. There were several more differences that were getting in the way of our staying together, and recognizing that we were just two different people and had a lot of work to do individually, and this was a huge tool for healing. What I'm encouraging you to recognize is that the person you married was most likely brought into your vortex because of your parents and their belief system. Either you were running away from the pain that was caused in your home growing up and looking for someone the exact opposite of your parent or parents, or you were running towards familiar pain, one that subconsciously reminded you of your parent or parents. There was something in your blueprint for how a marriage should be, and that is what is genetically coded into all of our psyches. My parents didn't believe in divorce and labeled people who did go through them as bad or weak. My former wife's family blueprint was that if things weren't working out in a relationship, then why suffer? Even though I can't imagine anyone actually having said to her that, the fact that her father had been married 3 times by the time we tied the knot, and that almost 90% of her family had divorced, it was imprinted in her DNA. All of our relationships up till now have existed like a structure that was built starting on the 2nd floor. They were doomed from the beginning, and it was just a matter of time before they would fall out from beneath us, only to land with a hard thud against generations of carefully laid concrete and rebar. Neither you nor your wife did anything wrong in coming together, and you couldn't be blamed any more than a lion for chasing down and eating a gazelle. It was all you had known and all you had been taught by your parents and theirs before them, and so on. It takes a lot of courage not to be the martyr and to say to family and friends that regardless which one of you asked for the divorce, that you still share 50% of the responsibility for the relationship. And the same courage for the spouse that made the decision to divorce or had an affair or was the alcoholic, etc. To not bow their heads and wear a scarlet letter upon their chest, but to stand proud knowing they did what they needed to do to survive based on what their blueprint was. Most people will not want to face that they can move away from their foundation, and will use guilt and shame to keep themselves and or their spouse sentenced to many more years, if not to their deathbed, to be attached to said foundations like a criminal doing hard labor with a ball and chain attached to their legs. and to do deeper work in unbuilding that foundation, I would highly recommend the book Conscious Loving by Gay and Kathleen Hendricks. As always, if you found what I have had to say of value, please like this video and subscribe to my channel and ring the notification bell to make sure you are getting the most up-to-date videos in this series. Please comment below with your thoughts, suggestions, and questions. Virtually yours,